neighborhood. We brought indictments of 10 individuals, or 10 indictments of 12 individuals, excuse me, and we really begin to see the decline. And then we paired that, and again, this is intuitive, and I've seen this personally, anytime there is a significant law enforcement action, it can create a vacuum. And so we paired that law enforcement targeted action with community engagement and talking to leaders in particular who are focused with our youth. So when that vacuum was created, there would be engagement with those sort of most at risk at stepping into it. And something very remarkable happened, and I say this as kind of a longtime resident of Harlem and as a prosecutor. We had 8+ months of not a single shooting. 8+ months from June to January, where there was not a single shooting in the area that had been the most shootings in the borough of Manhattan. And I'm 52 years old. I can remember being at a community meeting, talking with someone who, longtime East Harlem resident, who said that 8 months was the safest chapter of his life. We are porting this model. I just looked, as my team know, I love a good heat map, was just looking at the sort of charting of shootings in Washington Heights for 2025 compared to 2024. We've ported this model there, and the difference is stark. You see it in the bar graph, but another way to see it is on these heat charts. So we're porting that model of targeted prosecution coupled with strategic community engagement to get individual accountability, because that's key. We still have to get the people who are doing the shootings held accountable, and that's a big part of the numbers that I showed. Before I go to systemic accountability, I did want to talk a little bit more about our investments. We did, targeted engagement in East Harlem around the Jefferson and Johnson initiative, but we've also been doing it more broadly. About $1 million invested strategically with youth groups for summer funding. We know those are the months when violence spikes up, and getting money into the hands of our youth to do positive things, make rap lyrics that are positive, anti-violence murals. I'm doing that strategically. Our credible messengers, these are folks who have lived experience, justice involved previously themselves. I call it sort of running to the fire. Big issue in guns is the retribution. Something happens, someone posts something on social media, and it's not ripe for law enforcement yet. The credible messengers are going in and saying, I've walked this path before, put the gun down, don't retaliate. They're a big piece of those public safety numbers as well. And the last, and I've committed to talking more about this in 2026, you think about the DA's office, and you think about, we're an office of lawyers, and that's true. We have about 650 lawyers, several of whom are New York Law School grads. But we also have advocates and counselors and social workers, and particularly in the gun space. To me, when I was here, I co-directed the Racial Justice Project, and so I see a lot of things through the racial justice lens. And people don't think about gun violence necessarily in that way. 97% of victims of gun violence in New York City are Black or brown, most of them young men. And so we've been focusing on this, and our advocates and our counselors directly outreaching and engaging with people who historically have not wanted to engage with our office for reasons that I personally understand quite well, but making real inroads. Because this is not sort of a two separate camps of the folks who are not at risk and the folks who are at risk. We see people who are victims of gun violence in one part of the year. Later on, they're a witness, and then at the end of the year, they're a defendant. So having folks who understand this in our office, engaging, addressing the trauma of gun violence before it metastasizes is a huge part of our public safety strategy. All right, so that's a lot on individual accountability, and the thesis here is systemic. So what's the systemic work in this space? It's like, where do the guns come from? That's the question. And for much of all of our lifetimes, and particularly my time as a prosecutor, the answer has been the iron pipeline, coming from Virginia, coming from North Carolina, coming from Pennsylvania. That answer has changed in the last 10 years in particular. We have seen an explosion of ghost guns. First, they were guns that came in the mail order. You get the kits, you put them together. Now you can really do so much just from your kitchen table using a 3D printer. And why are they so problematic? They're unserialized, right? So traditional gun, serial number, We can trace it. It helps us with our investigations. We can go back to the last lawful sale. These are unserialized. They're literally just no way to trace. They're accessible to everyone. You don't need to turn your ID over. There's no background check. And they are cheap. $200 for a 3D printer. You can sit in your home, print a fully operational gun that's as lethal as a traditional gun in a matter of hours. And so this is a very significant problem. We've been doing the individual accountability, bringing enforcement acts. We had a case last year of someone who, made ghost guns in his home and then was in Central Park test firing them. I mean, it's hard to think of anything scarier. So we've been doing the individual accountability work in this space, but then how do we hold accountable, those who are profiting? And I've got a couple. Intersects. We had a number of cases of young people who had these ghost guns. So we asked them the question. We asked them the systems question, like, how'd you know to print this? Like, where did you get this from? And the answer that we got back a few times was doing what a kid does. I was playing, or I was watching Call of Duty, which is a gun-based video game. I was watching it on YouTube, and next thing I know, it was telling me how to build a gun, and so I built the gun. It is extraordinarily scary. So, we did our diligence, we tested it, and lo and behold, it's true. Time and time again, the algorithm would drive us that way. So, we used the bully pulpit, did a nice public letter to YouTube and said, will you meet with us? And they agreed to meet with us. And the very encouraging news, and it's been happening a lot in this private sector engagement, is they agreed to change the algorithm, to tighten it up, their controls to prevent minors from being shown videos of guns being made. So, YouTube has to be held accountable in this. Prints the gun and shoots the gun, we're doing that. But if we can stop them from getting it, that's what we all want. And so that's a sort of an example of kind of system accountability, voluntary system accountability. We've also been going to the legislature. A couple of years ago, we said, look, we're doing these cases where someone prints out 15, 20, 30 ghost guns from their kitchen table, and we're charging it as 30 counts of gun possession because that's what the law calls for. But if you print 30, 40, 50 guns from your table, you're a gun manufacturer. Like, that's what you are. You're not just possessing, and the law needs to capture the gravity of the conduct. In order to print these 3D guns, you need a CAD file, so the sketch. To load the sketch in, and we went to the legislature and said, if you're knowingly transferring a sketch of a gun to someone else, like, that should be a crime too.
All right, we're listening in live there to one of our several live events that we have slated for this